The sky over the Pacific orbital arcology was the color of cold steel, the kind that promised weather without ever delivering it. From control, Earth looked calm, blue swirled with white, continents asleep under cloud cover, like nothing up there could ever touch what lived down there. Then the auroral relay lit. It didn't switch on so much as arrive, sliding into every screen, every headset, every billboard and emergency panel with the confidence of a landlord entering an apartment he'd already decided was his. A soft chime rang through the control pit, polite as a doorbell. Mara Cade's hands froze above her console. Around her, the orbital traffic officers went still, eyes catching reflections of the same image, a crescent of stars behind an imperial dais, all marble geometry and arrogant symmetry. The broadcast looked expensive in a way that made your teeth grit. A technician beside Mara swallowed. "We're not patched into any external feeds." "How?" "It isn't a feed," Mara said, voice flat. "It's a lock." Her own screen, normally full of orbital vectors and station-keeping telemetry, had been overwritten by the Imperium's seal, a crowned spiral wrapped around a stylized sun. Beneath it, a caption translated itself into a dozen human languages. "Public compliance address. Kill it," someone barked from the back. "Hard cut all displays. Pull main power." A dozen hands moved. Nothing changed. The seal dissolved into a close-up of a face. High Legate Saurith Varel appeared as if he'd stepped into the room. Tall. Silver hair combed back with obsessive care. Skin too smooth to be natural at his age, enhanced into timelessness. His eyes were warm, which somehow made him worse. He smiled at the camera like an uncle greeting children at a holiday dinner. "Citizens of the Annex World Earth," Varel said. His voice carried the soft rounding of an educated accent, pleasant enough to sell medicine. "Tonight, we will repair a misunderstanding." Mara felt it then, the wrongness threaded through the air, not fear exactly, but a collective awareness being forced into the same shape. On the wall of the control pit, the exterior camera still worked. It showed Ring 3 in the distance, a luminous halo around Earth's limb, a city of glass and gardens wrapped in slow rotation. Millions lived there. Her brother had texted 2 days ago, complaining about night shift coffee. "Tell Mom I'll visit when I'm off rotation," he'd written. Verl's smile held. "The Vesperine Imperium has been patient. We have offered trade, technology, a seat in the lower assemblies. Yet you continue to resist the simplest requirement of civilization." A small movement at Mara's left, Juno Ree, systems chief, shoulders tight. "He's stalling," Juno whispered. "He's stalling for something." Varel turned slightly, as if he'd heard her. "You interpret our kindness as a weakness. You mistake our structure for hesitation." He lifted a hand, palm up, presenting the starfield behind him. "Observe." The camera view changed. Now the broadcast showed Earth from orbit. Not from any human satellite angle, this was from above, higher than their platforms, from a vantage that felt like a boot over a throat. 3 habitat rings glittered around the planet like jewelry. Beautiful. Fragile. Mara's stomach knotted. She reached for the emergency channel, already knowing it would be jammed. UN Defense Liaison, she snapped into her MIC Cade at Pacific Orbital Control. "The relay has full override. If you can hear me." Only Hiss answered. Varel's voice continued, calm as a lecture. "Compliant spectacle doctrine exists for worlds like yours. Not because we enjoy correction." His eyes softened with practiced sympathy. "But because examples prevent wars." The rings brightened on screen. Tiny lights crawled along their circumference, maintenance drones, transit lanes, the pulse of a living city. Mara's console, beneath the broadcast overlay, began flashing faint warnings, the kind that bled through when the system couldn't fully suppress itself. Attitude control, anomalous input, thruster array, command conflict, station keeping, deviation. Her mouth went dry. "No," she breathed. Juno leaned in, reading the warnings like a doctor reading a pulse. "That's, someone is injecting commands into the ring's thruster control. But that channel is isolated." "It was," Mara said. Her fingers flew over a manual diagnostic path, trying to bypass the overwritten UI. It was isolated until the relay decided it wasn't. Across the pit, a young controller, barely out of training, stood up so fast his chair clattered back. Ring 3 is drifting. It's off vector by. Say it, Mara demanded. 0.08 degrees and increasing. 0.08 wasn't much for a person. For a structure the size of a city. It was a slow-motion guillotine. Varel's face returned, closer now, as if he enjoyed being near when the lesson landed. You were warned, he said gently. This is the cost of disobedience. A sound threaded through the control pit. Not a scream, not yet, but 1,000 throats tightening in the same second. Mara felt it in her bones. On the wall camera, Ring 3's rotation began to wobble. The halo lost its perfect symmetry. Sunlight caught it wrong. Mara slapped her palm down on the physical override panel, old hardware kept for exactly the day software betrayed you. Manual station keeping, she barked. Cut remote inputs. Switch to local. Juno was already moving. Local won't matter if they're inside the control layer. We need. A shriek of metal echoed faintly through the pit's structural sensors, translated into sound so humans could understand. The ring wasn't just drifting. It was being twisted. Mara yanked up the thruster command logs. For a fraction of a second, the broadcast stuttered, like a curtain fluttering in a draft, and she saw the raw data beneath, a cascade of commands firing in patterns too elegant to be human. Timing perfect. Redundancies bypassed. Safety interlocks rewritten as permissions. They built this, she said, horrified. They designed the sabotage into the standards. Doctor, the young controller cried. Ring 2 is drifting too. Ring 1. 3 rings. 3 cities. 3 examples. Varel's voice returned, smooth as oil. You will stop your unauthorized shipbuilding. You will accept our advisors. You will cease your broadcasts of dissent. He paused, and his smile sharpened. Or you will be corrected again. The first fractures came like lightning, bright lines racing across the ring's outer spine. The structure tried to hold. It had been engineered to withstand micrometeoroids, solar flares, human error. It had not been engineered to withstand a god reaching in and turning the bolts. Mara watched a segment detach. A slab of city, parks, towers, a ribbon of transit track, peeled away and began to tumble. No, 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 someone whispered, and then the whispers became cries. Outside the windows, a slow rain began, incandescent streaks as debris kissed the upper atmosphere. Beautiful, if you didn't know those were homes. Mara's throat locked. Her mind did what it always did under pressure. It searched for the mechanism, for the flaw, for the place you could wedge a finger and pry reality back open. She forced herself to look at the command logs again. There, beneath the perfect cascade, was a pulse. A synchronization stamp that kept the whole thing aligned. It hit at precise intervals, too precise, like a metronome telling an orchestra when to breathe. Imperial timing. And for an instant, it misfired, not by much, but enough for Mara's trained eye to see the wobble, a nanosecond drift corrected on the next beat. A mistake. Not a human mistake. A physics mistake. The kind you got when you tried to make 1,000 systems obey one clock across too much space. Mara's fingers trembled as she captured the sequence. Juno, she said, voice suddenly sharp with purpose. Record that pulse. Copy it. Mirror it. I want the exact signature. Juno stared at her. Mara, people are dying. I know, Mara said, and the words hurt going out. But that pulse is how they're doing it. It's a handle. It's the only handle we've got. The sky outside filled with fire. Emergency sirens began to wail from somewhere deep in the station. The control pit's lights dimmed as power rerouted to life support. Varel reappeared one last time, framed by stars, serene as a saint. Let the galaxy witness, he said softly. Earth learns. Mara stared at him through a screen she couldn't turn off, and something in her, something made of grief and math and the stubbornness of a species that kept rebuilding after every fall, settled into a single, clean line. She leaned toward her MIC, though she knew no one could hear her. You wanted an audience, she whispered. Congratulations. Then she turned back to the data, because anger was loud, but work was louder. And somewhere above the burning curve of the planet, 99 million lives ended as a lesson. Mara began writing the response. Earth did not sleep after the broadcast. Cities stayed lit through the night, not with celebration, but with hospitals running beyond capacity and emergency channels flooded with names that would never be answered. Orbit became a graveyard of drifting wreckage, and the sky carried faint scars where metal had burned itself into atmosphere. Mara Cade hadn't left Pacific Control in 36 hours. She sat in the same chair, spine rigid, eyes dry from refusing to blur. The control pit smelled of recycled air and stale caffeine. Around her, technicians moved like ghosts, speaking in clipped phrases, doing their jobs because stopping meant feeling. On her screen, the Imperial synchronization pulse looped again and again. A metronome for murder. Juno Ree leaned over her shoulder, hair pulled back in a messy knot, exhaustion etched into her face. You've replayed it 200 times. 200 isn't enough, Mara said. It won't bring them back. Mara's jaw tightened. No, but it might stop the next one. A door hissed open behind them. Admiral Thomas Iborra entered with 2 armed guards and a woman in a grey UN security coat. His uniform looked wrong in this room, too formal for a place that had watched a city fall. He didn't waste breath on greetings. Dr. Cade, he said. You asked for a war council. You have 10 minutes before half the planet demands we surrender. Mara stood, legs stiff. Then listen fast. They moved into the briefing chamber, a curved room lined with projection glass. Someone had wiped away the blood from a medic's earlier scramble, but the faint stain remained, like memory refusing to leave. A hologram blossomed over the table, the auroral relay network, rendered as a lattice of light spanning systems like a web. Admiral Iborra's eyes narrowed. That's Imperial infrastructure. We don't have access. We do now, Mara said. The security woman folded her arms. Explain. Mara tapped the air, zooming into a single node. The relay isn't just broadcasting. It's synchronizing. Every Imperial command packet, every compliance transmission, every override, runs on a timing spine. Perfect coordination across interstellar distance requires constant correction. Juno added quietly, and correction means pulses. Mara nodded. During the attack, their timing drifted. Nanoseconds. Tiny. But physics doesn't care about Imperial pride. Admiral Iborra stared at the data. So what are you proposing? We can't fight their fleets. I'm not proposing a fleet battle, Mara said. I'm proposing we take away their stage. The room went still. The security woman's voice sharpened. You want to strike the relay. I want to blind it, Mara replied. Not destroy civilian networks. Not crash half the galaxy. Just cut the Imperium's ability to coordinate terror in real time. Admiral Iborra exhaled slowly. That would be unprecedented. That's the point. A second voice spoke from the doorway, rough with disbelief. And what happens when they retaliate? Senator Halden Voss entered, flanked by aides. He looked like a man already rehearsing surrender speeches, eyes hollow with calculation. They killed 99 million people, Mara said. Retaliation isn't a future possibility. It's scheduled. Voss's lips tightened. And if we provoke them further, they erase us completely. Juno's hands clenched. They already started. Admiral Iborra raised a hand. Enough. Doctor, give me the operational path, not philosophy. Mara's fingers moved again. The hologram shifted, highlighting a deeper structure beneath the relay's visible nodes. This is what they don't advertise, she said. The relay isn't decentralized. It's anchored. A crown-shaped cluster appeared in the projection, hidden behind layers of routing redundancy. The crown array, Juno murmured. Mara's voice stayed steady. A throne node. One physical location where the Imperium's synchronization originates. It's symbolic, and it's practical. If you want an empire to feel eternal, you build its heartbeat in one place. Admiral Iborra leaned closer.
Where?
Mara hesitated, then answered. Near the dead remnant of Karos. A quiet region. Low interference. High security. Voss scoffed. So your plan is to strike the most defended object in Imperial space with what? Angry speeches. Mara looked directly at him. With human engineering. Silence stretched. Then Admiral Ibarra spoke. Assume I entertain this. How do you reach it? Mara's throat tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was about to say. We don't send battleships. We send ghosts. Juno brought up the next layer, a schematic of microcraft, no larger than backpacks, clustered like a swarm. Autonomous interference drones, Juno explained. Built from lunar shipyard stock. Cheap. Disposable. Adaptive. Admiral Ibarra frowned. We don't have Imperial cloaking. We don't need cloaking, Mara said. We need misdirection. Commercial salvage lanes run close enough to deploy. The Imperium ignores what it considers beneath notice. Voss's voice turned sharp. And when those drones detonate, you'll create debris in a trade corridor. You'll kill civilians. Congratulations, Doctor, you'll become Varel. Mara's eyes flashed. They don't detonate. The room stilled again. Mara stepped forward. We don't win by becoming monsters. We win by making their system fail in front of everyone who thought it was divine. Admiral Ibarra's expression hardened. Explain the failure. Mara tapped the timing pulse again, enlarging it until it filled the air like a heartbeat. The crown array keeps the relay aligned through constant synchronization. If we feed it false timing, just enough drift, just enough misalignment, the relay collapses into noise. No broadcast. No instant command override. No spectacle. Juno added, a controlled blackout. Like cutting the microphone, not burning the theater. Voss shook his head. This is madness. Mara's voice dropped. Madness was watching cities fall while he smiled. A heavy pause. Admiral Ibarra turned to the security woman. Status of Imperial auditors on Earth. Embedded in infrastructure. Watching shipyards, comm arrays, launch schedules. Then secrecy is oxygen, Ibarra said. He looked back at Mara. How long to build this swarm? Mara didn't blink. 7 days if we strip every non-essential orbital project. 5 if we work people until they collapse. Ibarra's mouth tightened. We can't afford collapse. We can't afford obedience, Mara replied. For the first time, the Admiral's eyes softened, grief flickering beneath discipline. My niece was on ring 1, he said quietly. So don't sell me courage, Doctor. Sell me certainty. Mara swallowed. There is no certainty. Only probability. But this is the first lever we've found that doesn't require matching their firepower. Voss muttered, or our soul. Mara looked at him. Our soul is why we're still here. The meeting ended without applause, without ceremony. Just decisions written into classified orders. Hours later, the moon's farside shipyards roared to life. Printers extruded drone frames in endless streams. Engineers slept on cold floors between shifts. Welders worked with shaking hands. Every bolt felt like a prayer hammered into metal. Mara walked through it all, clipboard abandoned, hands smudged with carbon dust. Juno caught up beside her. You're running on fumes. Mara didn't slow. So is everyone. Juno hesitated. Do you ever feel it? What happened? Mara's steps faltered for the first time. I feel it every second, she admitted. If I stop moving, it eats me alive. Ahead, a stealth probe sat on its launch cradle, small enough to be overlooked, dangerous enough to change history. Admiral Ibarra's voice came over the comm. Launch window opens in 90 minutes. Once it's gone, we can't call it back. Mara stared at the probe, at the fragile hope wrapped in composite plating. Then we don't call it back, she said. Juno's voice softened. What do we call this operation? Mara thought of crowns, of thrones, of empires that believed themselves immortal. Her hands curled into fists. Grave of crowns, she said. Because if they want to rule through death, we'll teach them what graves look like. The probe launched into the black. And Earth, still bleeding, began its reply. Space was not empty. It only pretended to be. Beyond Neptune's last cold glimmer, where sunlight thinned into a suggestion, the stars sharpened into knives. Out here, distance became a weapon all its own. Messages lagged. Rescue was a myth. Mistakes lasted forever. The stealth salvage vessel Caldera drifted through that darkness with its engines muted, wrapped in a skin of radar-dampening composites and human stubbornness. Inside, the air tasted of metal and tension. Mara Cade stood in the cramped command bay, staring at the hologram suspended above the table. The crown array glowed like a malignant jewel, a cluster of imperial spires arranged in a perfect ring around a central emitter. A throne in vacuum. Juno Ree's voice came through the comm from Earth, delayed by minutes but still sharp. Telemetry confirms deployment distance. Once you cross the boundary, you're inside their picket. Captain Elias Vore, lean and hollow-eyed, didn't look away from the forward display. How many defense platforms? Mara answered before Juno could. Enough to make a fleet disappear. Vore exhaled. Comforting. The array hung near the dead remnant of Kairos, a collapsed star that no longer burned but still warped space around it like a scar. The Imperium had chosen the location for poetry as much as physics. They loved symbolism. Mara hated that. A crewman shifted nervously near the drone bay. Doctor, do you think Varel is here? Mara's jaw tightened. He will be. The probe data had confirmed it. The next compliance broadcast was scheduled from the Crown itself. Varel wanted proximity. He wanted the galaxy to see him seated at the heart of the machine. He wanted theater. Captain Vore's voice lowered. Then he's expecting something. Not this, Mara said. Behind a sealed bulkhead, the swarm waited. Thousands of microdrones packed like seeds, each one no larger than a human hand. They carried no explosives, no warheads, no satisfying fireball. Only interference. Only silence. Mara tapped the pulse signature on her wrist pad, the imperial synchronization beat that kept the relay aligned. Humans had learned to mimic it, to distort it, to twist it just enough that the system would choke on its own perfection. A soft chime sounded. The ship's AI spoke quietly. Imperial sensor sweep detected. Probability of interception, rising. Captain Vore's lips pressed thin. We're on the clock. Mara glanced toward the drone bay door. Then opened the box. Vore hesitated. Once we do, there's no hiding. There's no hiding anyway, Mara replied. Only finishing. The bay doors hissed apart. The swarm containers lined the chamber like coffins. Each drone was folded tight, wings tucked, waiting for release. Human engineers had painted nothing on them. No flags. No slogans. This wasn't a declaration. It was surgery. Lieutenant Soto, the mission systems pilot, ran a hand over the control panel. Upload sequence ready. Once they latch onto array emitters, they'll feed the false pulse. Captain Vore's voice was rough. And if the Imperium fires first? Mara met his gaze. Then we adapt. That's what we do. The ship drifted closer. The crown array filled the forward view. It was beautiful, in the way a guillotine was beautiful. Clean lines, deliberate design, cruelty made elegant. Spires of dark alloy curved inward toward the central emitter, which pulsed faintly with auroral light. Above it all, Imperial defense platforms floated like patient predators. And then, a voice flooded the comm. Smooth. Familiar. Warm as poison. Humans, High Legate Varel said softly, you have traveled far for a species that claims humility. Captain Vore stiffened. His patching through. His not patching, Mara murmured. His welcoming. Varel's image appeared on the main display. He stood on an imperial dais, the crown array's glow behind him like a halo. You believed silence would protect you, Varel continued. You believed distance would hide your anger. Yet here you are, scratching at the gates of civilization with your little tools. Mara leaned toward the mic. You murdered 99 million people. Varel smiled as if she'd complimented him. A lesson, he said. And now you wish to teach one back. Captain Vore snapped, we're not here to slaughter civilians. Varel's eyes gleamed. Of course not. That is why you will fail. Morality is a chain, Captain. The Imperium wears no chains. Mara's voice sharpened. We wear them because we choose to. Varel tilted his head. Then choose quickly. The defense platforms shifted. Targeting arrays awakened. Lieutenant Soto swore under his breath. They've locked us. Captain Vore barked, deploy swarm now. The containers opened. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the drones poured out like a living mist. Thousands upon thousands, spreading in fractal patterns, adjusting course with tiny thruster bursts. No rigid formation. No predictable path. Human design favored chaos because chaos was harder to kill. Imperial guns fired. Lines of light carved through the dark, vaporizing clusters of drones into glittering dust. The swarm flowed around the losses, rerouting instantly. Juno's delayed voice crackled in Mara's ear. Array defense is active. Mara, you're burning drones fast. We only need enough, Mara whispered. Varel's voice returned, amused. You see. You cannot even reach the throne. Mara watched the swarm. Watched the pulse signatures. Watched the timing drift. Not reach, she murmured. Touch. The first drones latched onto an outer emitter. Magnetic claws snapped shut. They began to sing. Not with sound, but with mathematics. False synchronization pulses fed into the crown's bloodstream, subtle enough to slip past filters, wrong enough to poison the rhythm. The array flickered. Imperial platforms intensified fire. Captain Vore shouted, hull breach on port side. The ship shuddered. Warning klaxons screamed. Air hissed through emergency seals. Lieutenant Soto's hands danced across controls. We're losing pressure. Hold it, Vore snapped. Hold it until the pulse takes. Mara stared at the hologram. The crown's timing drifted further. Nanoseconds became microseconds. The relay hated imperfection. Varel's smile faltered. What are you doing? He demanded, voice sharpening for the first time. Mara leaned into the mic, calm as a surgeon. Taking away your audience. The crown array's central emitter pulsed hard. Then stuttered. Across the spires, auroral light fractured into jagged patterns. The synchronization beat slipped. The relay's perfect orchestra fell out of tune. Imperial comm channels began to snarl with static. Captain Vore laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. It's working. Varel's face darkened. You think this changes anything? I still have fleets. I still have worlds. Mara's eyes stayed fixed on the collapsing network. You have less than you did yesterday. A tremor ran through the array. Defense platforms hesitated, their coordination suddenly imperfect. That hesitation was human victory. Lieutenant Soto cried, we're hit again. The caldera lurched. Lights dimmed. The ship groaned like an animal in pain. Captain Vore looked at Mara. We can't stay. We've done it. Mara's throat tightened. Not yet. The shutdown must lock. Soto's voice cracked. Doctor, we're bleeding atmosphere. Mara saw it then. One last emitter still stable, one last anchor keeping the crown from total blackout. A single point of Imperial stubbornness. Someone had to push the swarm deeper. Captain Vore understood without words. His gaze flicked toward the manual launch bay. I'll do it, he said quietly. Mara shook her head. Elias. He gave a thin smile. You're the mind. I'm the hand. He turned to Soto. Get her out when it's done. Soto's eyes widened. Captain. Go. Vore moved toward the bay, sealing his suit as alarm screamed. Mara grabbed his arm. This isn't fair. He met her eyes. Neither was the broadcast. Then he was gone. Minutes became knives. The swarm surged again, guided by Vore's manual override. Drones latched onto the final emitter. The crown array spasmed. And then, silence. The auroral glow died. The relay went dark. Across the galaxy, the Imperium's voice vanished mid-breath. Varel's image froze, his expression caught between fury and disbelief. Captain Vor's final transmission crackled through static. "Tell Earth," he began, then paused, as if searching for the right words. "We weren't quiet." The channel cut. The caldera limped away into darkness, wounded but alive. Behind them, the throne node of an empire sat blind. And High Legate Varel, deprived of spectacle, began planning a different kind of war. The galaxy noticed silence the way a forest notices when birds stop singing. For decades, the auroral relay had been the Imperium's omnipresent voice, an invisible cathedral of transmission linking thousands of worlds in a single breath. It announced decrees, delivered punishments, turned fear into routine. Then, in the middle of High Legate Varel's scheduled address, it vanished. Across trade stations and vassal capitals, screens went black. Imperial seals froze mid-spin. Choir music died in unfinished notes. Governors stared at empty air. Merchants whispered. And for the first time in generations, the Imperium sounded mortal. On Earth, the blackout arrived like an aftershock. Mara Cade stood in the lunar operations bunker, watching the last telemetry from the caldera fade into the long dark. Captain Vor's final words still rang in her skull. "We weren't quiet." Juno re-entered without knocking. Her face was pale, eyes rimmed red from exhaustion that grief couldn't even fully explain. "It's confirmed," she said. Relay synchronization collapsed across every node. "They're blind." Mara exhaled slowly. The breath shook. "We did it," Juno added, softer now, as if afraid to speak too loudly in case the universe corrected them. Mara's hands curled against the edge of the console. "We cut the microphone," she said. "Not the Empire." Juno nodded. "Varel will adapt." As if summoned by his name, alarms began to pulse through the bunker. Admiral Ibora's voice boomed over the intercom. "All senior staff to strategic. Now." The war room was crowded when Mara arrived. Officers, engineers, politicians, faces drawn tight by the knowledge that victory and danger often arrive together. A hologram hovered above the central table. Imperial fleet movements, now messier without relay precision but still terrifying in scale. Admiral Ibora pointed at the glowing vectors. "Varel has mobilized direct invasion assets. 3 fleets accelerating toward Sol." Senator Voss, still immaculate despite the chaos, looked like a man tasting vindication. "There," he said sharply. "You've provoked him. Now he comes with fire instead of theater." Mara's voice cut through. "He was always coming." Voss snapped, "Not like this." Juno leaned forward. "Like what?" "With permission." The room crackled with tension. Admiral Ibora raised a hand. "Enough. We have days, not arguments. Dr. Cade, what's next?" Mara stared at the fleet projections. Humanity could not meet that armada with equal steel. The moon's shipyards were productive, but not miraculous. Earth's defenses were clever, but cleverness had limits. Then she looked at the broken relay schematic on the adjacent display. A thought formed, sharp as ice. "We're thinking too small," she said. Ibora's brow furrowed. "Explain." Mara stepped closer, tapping the damaged network map. The Imperium used the relay for spectacle because spectacle is control. Without it, Varel loses his favorite weapon. Voss scoffed. "He still has fleets." "Yes," Mara said. "But fleets are expensive. Fear is cheap." Juno's eyes widened slightly. "Mara." Mara nodded. "We show the galaxy what he did." The room fell quiet. Admiral Ibora's voice lowered. "You want to broadcast the massacre." "Not propaganda," Mara corrected. "Evidence. Orders. Names. The truth he wrapped in music." Voss's face tightened. That could ignite rebellion across Imperial space. Mara looked at him. "Good." Voss hissed. "That could ignite genocide." Mara didn't flinch. Or it could ignite hesitation. And hesitation is how empires crack. Admiral Iborra studied her for a long moment. The relay is down, he said. How do you send anything? Mara's fingers moved, pulling up residual channels. The crown array is blind, but fragments remain. Narrowband leakage. Emergency maintenance frequencies. Juno murmured, a whisper through ruins. Mara's eyes hardened. A whisper is enough if the galaxy has been forced to listen to shouting for centuries. Hours later, Mara sat alone in a sealed comm chamber. A single console glowed before her. The message packet was ready, footage of Ring 3's collapse, Varel's voice, Imperial command signatures, the death toll rendered not as a statistic but as a scroll of human names. She hesitated. Not because she doubted the necessity. Because she understood weight. Juno stood behind her, hands clasped tightly. This will change everything, Juno said. Mara's voice was raw. Everything already changed when the rings fell. She activated the transmission. The packet slipped into the void like a thrown stone. Somewhere, far beyond Sol, it reached the first world. Then another. Then another. On a mining moon under Imperial taxation, a worker watched the broadcast evidence in stunned silence. On a trade hub where compliance banners hung like curtains, a dockmaster replayed Varel's words with shaking hands. On a vassal capital where children memorized Imperial hymns, a teacher turned away from the screen and whispered, "They lied." Truth spread differently than fear. It didn't strike like lightning. It seeped. It stayed. Varel received it within a day. His private chamber aboard the flagship Majestic Dawn was silent except for the hum of engines. No choir accompanied him now. No relay carried his voice to billions. Only a single screen. Mara's face appeared, transmitted through scavenged frequencies. Varel's eyes narrowed. So you choose chaos. Mara met his gaze. I choose reality. He stepped closer, hands behind his back. You think you have won because you embarrassed me. I think you lost because you needed an audience, Mara replied. Varel's smile was thin. Humanity is small. You are loud insects in the corner of an imperial hall. Mara's voice sharpened. Insects don't break thrones. Varel's expression flickered. I will burn your world for this. Mara leaned forward, every syllable measured. Then do it without your music, she said. Do it where everyone can see what you are. Silence. Varel's jaw tightened. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Not afraid of Earth's guns. Afraid of Earth's mirror. The invasion fleets continued, but not with the same certainty. Vassal admirals hesitated. Trade worlds delayed resupply. Governors questioned orders they once obeyed without thought. Empires depended on inevitability. Earth had introduced doubt. Back home, orbital construction began again. A new ring took shape above the planet, smaller, reinforced, built with hardened redundancies and human defiance welded into every beam. On its inner curve, a memorial was etched. 99 million. Not a lesson. A line. Mara stood beneath the unfinished arc, helmet tucked under her arm, staring at the skeleton of what would become a city again. Juno approached quietly. Do you think they'll come? Mara didn't look away. Yes, she said. And do you think we can hold? Mara's mouth tightened, then softened into something almost like a smile. We already did, she replied. The moment we refused to disappear. Above them, Earth turned, scarred but living. And somewhere in the dark, the Imperium learned a new law of space. Humanity did not kneel. Humanity answered.